Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, February the 20th, 2024. I hereby call the local government full committee to order. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Representatives Alexander, Burkhart, Carr, Doggett, Hale, Haynes, Holsclaw, Love, Martin, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Raper, Reedy, Rudd, Shaw, Slater, Stevens, Thompson, Warner, Vice Chairman Wright, Chairman Crawford.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do any of the members have any personal orders or any announcements? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to acknowledge my former colleague with Knox County Commission. I think he's finishing up his second and final term. I think I was the deciding vote when he was appointed. So, Commissioner John Schoonmaker, let's give him a round of applause.
Any other personal orders or announcements?
No.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure this has been done many times before, but we're always glad to have our former state representative, Brother Charlie Curtis, with us. He's still walking wisdom, and we're just glad he's here. Help me make him welcome.
Representative or Vice Chairman Wright, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I wish to thank my fellow members for introducing the only two people that I could have introduced. So please give them a round of applause and welcome.
Any other personal orders or announcements? Just for those folks watching and the people in the audience today, you will see several members get up and leave. It's not that they're mad at me, I promise. Well, it could be. But we have a condensed week this week, so a lot of them are presenting bills in other committees and serve on other committees. So it's not that they're being disrespectful, it's they're presenting bills. So with that being said, today we have 7 bills on the calendar. And we'll take up item number 1, House Bill 1581. This is a bill that I am running for the speaker. Without objection, I will roll this to the hill. Item number 2 on today's agenda is House Bill 1725 by Representative Gant. I don't see him, so without objection, we'll roll that to call the chairman. Item number 3 on today's agenda is House Bill 2071 by Representative Williams. He has asked without objection that this be rolled 2 weeks. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we will roll this bill 2 weeks. Item number 4 on today's agenda is House Bill 1616 by Representative Ritchie. I don't see him. So without objection, it will be rolled to call the chair. Item number 5 on today's agenda is House Bill 2685 by Chairman Doggett. Is Chairman Doggett in the room? We will roll this to the call of the chair. Item number 6 on today's agenda is House Bill 2294 by Chairman Rudd. Chairman Rudd, got a proper motion and second. You are recognized, Chairman Rudd, on House Bill 2294.
Present from a seat, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Without objection, he will be presenting from the diocese.
Well, this is a simple bill. It changes the absentee ballot request filing deadline to 10 days from 7 days. We had requests to change it to 14. I thought that was too far out, so this is a good compromise. Everybody seems happy with. It does not change the existing laws regarding medical exemptions, and the state elections department has deferred and said they can't implement in order not to interfere with this year's elections. It does not go into effect on after the November election of this year. And that is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
You have heard the explanation of House Bill 2294. Are there any questions? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to get an understanding of why the change. And I'm trying to, again, so I have two questions. In how many ballots have this effect have come in, I guess, after the 7 days to where this will become an issue in this 3-day span?
Chairman Rudd.
Well, I have no way of knowing that. It wasn't that they've come in after 7. This was to give the county elections commissions a little bit more time to process the ballots. They were rushed 7 days before the election, and also the postal delivery and et cetera. So this gives them a little bit more time to process those before the election. Like I said, there was an effort to get 14. I thought that was too much, so we compromised it at 10 days.
Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just these bills that make it more and more difficult. I think we're at a difficult but manageable spot already. But so for us to keep adding these layers and making it more and more difficult for our voters to do something that was it's that's a great responsibility. It's an awesome task for us to keep layering these restrictions, and that's what I feel this is, because those ballots are going to be thrown out, and I just hate that a qualified voter is going to potentially be affected. So I haven't heard of groundswell. Have election commissioners statewide brought this bill to you? And that'll be my final question.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
This bill, Representative McKenzie, this bill is a result of two things. Number one, election commissioners have complained about having enough time to process, but also several years ago, which we already changed the law on that, there was a huge effort to just swell the election commissions with a lot of phony absentee ballots. And we dealt with that in earlier legislation, but it overwhelmed the election commissions. Also during of course, during the pandemic, there was far more people that qualified for this due to medical exemptions, and they were swarming and when I say swarming, I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about ballots, where they just couldn't process them in time. It was causing delays and it was causing trouble. And this is just giving them, like I said, some of the election administrators and advocates wanted 14 days. I thought that was just too far out. So I thought an extra 3 days, 10 days was a reasonable compromise to help our election commissions.
You've heard the explanation of House Bill 2294. Any more questions for the sponsor? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the election, the language, you mentioned that it doesn't go into effect until after November, so that means that it will go into effect in 2025?
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Yes, that'd be correct. Or if there happened to be a special election after the November election, but as of right now, it's meant to go in effect the following year. Yes.
Okay.
Election cycle.
Representative Miller.
And the reason behind that is because we are currently in a presidential primaries and elections currently.
Chairman Rudd.
That is correct. We
Okay.
didn't want to, the whole point of this bill was to help election commissions. We didn't want to confuse it and change the rules in the middle of the game. So we just thought it was best to wait till after the elections this year.
Representative
And,
Miller.
unfortunately, that is a compromise because currently, and it's going to remain that way, 7 days. So a number of those ballots are probably in this election a waste, unfortunately, but we'll go with what we have. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 2294. Moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules. If you'd like to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk. Okay, we've had a couple of representatives step in, so let's jump back to item number 2, House Bill 1725 by Representative Gant. Proper motion and second. I do see that we have an amendment on this bill, Representative Gant. Can you please give us your drafting code?
Chairman, it is 013174.
That is
and
correct.
It makes
Do
the
I have
bill.
a motion on, proper motion and second? Representative, would you like us to place this on the bill for discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all those in favor of placing House Bill 13174 going on the bill, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is now amended. Representative Gant, you're recognized on the amended bill 1725.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. What this legislation does, it clarifies the administration of the state of Tennessee Length of Service Award Program known as LOSAP, grant funding, and the use of appropriated funds to pay for administrative expenses and to be carried forward into future fiscal year if unused. And I can go deeper if we need to, but that kind of gives you a summary of what we're doing.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 1725, moving on to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to Finance, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Next on the list will be House Bill 1616. And this is by Representative Ritchie. Proper motion and second. Representative Ritchie, you are recognized on 1616.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. Chairman, I request a roll call vote on any action taken on this bill, please. This bill is very simple. What this ends up doing is allowing our voters across the state of Tennessee to declare a party. The abstract, don't read the abstract. If you're looking at the notes on there, it's going to have the word must in there. Nowhere in the language of the bill does it say the word must. It says that a voter shall declare a party or remain unaffiliated. So currently, out of all of our registered voters in the state of Tennessee, all voters are currently unaffiliated. What this is just allowing is for voters to go down to the election office and declare whether they want to be registered as a Republican, registered as a Democrat, or just remain unaffiliated. There's nothing that forces them to choose a particular party. And then the only change that happens when it comes to the actual election is when an individual goes in, just how they do right now during a primary party, they would ask, do you want a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot? That process remains the same. The only change is if somebody has went to the election office and declared that they wanted to be a Republican or they wanted to be a Democrat or whatever the other recognized parties are in the state, then they would just receive that particular ballot. They would not be asked whether they want. This was brought to me from folks there in my district because they feel very strongly that they want to be recognized with a particular party. I, too, myself, want to be registered as a Republican. I don't want to be registered as an unaffiliated in the state of Tennessee. And that's simply the bill. I stand by for any questions.
You've heard the explanation of House Bill 1616. For the committee's knowledge, we do have some speakers that will be speaking, but I will recognize you for questions for the sponsor at this time if you would like. Any questions? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How would this bill affect the current voting practice?
Representative Ritchie.
So currently, all voters in the state of Tennessee are unaffiliated. It's not going to change any of those individuals at all. All it would end up doing is if somebody goes in and declares that they want to be registered as one of the recognized parties, Democrat, Republican, then when they went in for a primary ballot, then they would not have to say, I want the Republican ballot or I want the Democrat ballot. They would just receive whatever party they're declared for. If they do not go to the election office, then they just remain unaffiliated. And the same process that's taking place now would continue forward.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, 'cause I like you, I would not want to be declared as a Republican because I'm not. I get that. But under this bill, it looks like once if I declare myself unaffiliated and I pick Republican one time and Democrat the second time, what happens?
Representative Ritchie.
So you don't have to declare as unaffiliated. You can, but if you don't declare a party, then you're unaffiliated. So if you would be able to go in and if you voted on a Republican primary this year and the next one that's in August, you voted on the Democrat and then the next one Republican and next one Democrat, you can continually swap back and forth because you're unaffiliated.
Follow up, Representative McKenzie. Next on our list is Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me how this, I know you had a bill similar to this last year. How does this differ from that one?
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. So the bill last year that I ran was actually closing the primaries. That would have required everybody to be either registered as a Republican, as a Democrat, or as an independent. This bill doesn't even have the word independent in there, and it allows the choice if you want to declare a party. So it's completely different.
Okay,
Representative Thompson.
so if, as you said, I just want to make sure I understand this clearly. So if you want to vote in one party, one election, another party, on the next election, you don't have to register one way or the other, or you can just remain unaffiliated and just switch back and forth. Is that right? Without having to go to the election office and change?
Representative Ritchie.
Somewhat correct. So if you knowingly vote in another primary when you're associated or affiliated with a party, with a particular party, then that's where you're creating a crime. This right here does not require anybody to register as Republican or Democrat. So if you don't go to the election office, you would be registered as unaffiliated if you don't declare, and then you would be able to vote. If you're right in the middle to where one cycle there's a Republican primary that's taking place that is more lined up with the overall values of where you're at, then you could vote on that one. The next one, you could go there and you would be allowed, even if you selected the Republican Party declared there or the Democrat Party, which are the recognized parties in the state of Tennessee currently, you could switch as long as we were not within 30 days of an election with this particular bill.
Representative Thompson.
Okay, I'm trying to get my head around this now. So, so let's say I'm unaffiliated, I can vote the Republican primary in this coming August election, or the next, whenever this is effective.
Representative Ritchie.
That is correct. If you're unaffiliated, you would go in and vote identical to how everybody in the state of Tennessee is voting right now. Whenever you get there and you give them your photo ID, they would ask you, do you want the Republican or the Democrat ballot?
Representative Thompson.
So in the next election, I wanted to go and change over. I like the Democrats running, so I want to vote the Democratic primary. Do I have to do any paperwork or anything at all?
Representative Ritchie.
No. So if you're unaffiliated, you just go in and vote identical. It's the same exact process that everybody in here has experienced that takes place right now. When you go in to go vote, you tell them if you want Republican ballot or you want Democrat ballot. By choosing one of those ballots, you do not get assigned to a particular party. That's one of the misunderstandings of this particular legislation. If you're unaffiliated, you remain unaffiliated unless you go to the Election Commission office or go onto the portal to have a party affiliation change. So it does not change that at all.
Representative Thompson, for your final question.
Yes, I was going to say this will wrap it up. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with it. I see what you mean. It's better than last year's, but most people in the state, the plurality are people who are unaffiliated. They don't want to choose a party. And most people, poll after poll, people like it that way. And I think this is probably taking a step away from popular opinion. And so I'm cannot support this myself today. Thank you.
Representative or Chairman Rudd, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Representative Ritchie, thank you for carrying this. For those of us who want to register our party affiliation and are proud of it, we don't have an option now. We're forced to be unaffiliated. So this at least gives us an option. For those who don't want to declare, they can still vote as unaffiliated. So I would thank you for letting me at least have that choice. And it still leaves, regardless of whether I'm unaffiliated or not, you can still vote in either party's primary. So it still leaves that open. And someone addressed earlier, what is it? To my knowledge, the existing laws, the misdemeanor and the felony that dictates crossover voting is still in place. You're not changing those laws. So those would still be in place. You're not changing those. You're just giving people a right to register their party affiliation. And for those who don't want to register, they can still remain unaffiliated and vote in either primary. Is that correct?
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Correct. That is correct. So those that want to remain unaffiliated, if that is what polling data says that most people want to remain that way, this bill does exactly that. But for the individuals that want to be affiliated with the party, this bill is the step that we need to be able to, for me to be able to say, hey, I'm a Republican.
Well, thank you. Thank you for carrying it. It's got my support. Thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Miller.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I prefer to wait until the presentation.
No
I
problem.
maybe have some questions after that. Thank you.
You'll be first on the list. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if I remain unaffiliated, we got a presidential election coming up, and I remain unaffiliated, I can vote for either or and not break the rules.
Representative Ritchie.
That is correct. If you're unaffiliated, whenever you go in, it's identical to how it is right now. I went and voted this past weekend. When I walked in there, I gave them my ID and they said, do you want the Republican ballot or Democrat ballot? I said Republican. If this was in law, I would have only received the Republican one, but I would remain, if this passes, then everybody in the state stays unaffiliated unless they go and declare that they're a part of one of the major parties.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if this had been law, you wouldn't have had to do anything but to go in. Would they've given you a Republican, if you were unaffiliated, would you got a Republican ballot?
Representative Ritchie.
So if I'm unaffiliated, I would have had to request, they would ask me, do you want a Republican or Democrat? But if I was registered as a Republican, I just would have given them my ID and then they would have only given me the Republican ballot because I'm declared as a Republican. So therefore I'm not going to receive the Democrat ballot at that point.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you. Final question, but what if you wanted to vote? I know you don't before I say this, but what if you wanted to vote as a Democrat and ask for a Democrat ballot since you already a Republican? What would happen?
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. So if you're registered as a Republican, if this bill was to become law and you go in and you declare a Republican Party and you wanted to vote in the Democrat, you would just have to go down to the election office or go online, and then you can change your party affiliation from Republican back to unaffiliated, or you could move it over as Democrat. So you can move it as long as you're not within that 30-day window of the election.
Next on the list is Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, if this actually gives cover to someone that's unaffiliated in moving back and forth and not running into a problem of crossover voting by statute, is that correct?
Representative Ritchie.
Yes, Chairman, that is correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, well, Representative Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Chairman, for recognizing me. one of the biggest problems we have in the state of Tennessee is getting people to get out and vote. And, you know, that troubles me greatly because in my district, if you get 10, 12%, you feel pretty good. In my opinion, that's very poor. You know, a lot of people has died for our freedoms to vote, and I think it's an honor and a privilege to get to vote. And my concern is we start adding more and more to it, then we're going to push more people away. So how do you feel about that,
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. And I would say that we've had a lot of folks kill for our freedom, not die for our freedom, me serving in the military. But as far as for that, this bill's not going to impede the voting rights of anybody. They get registered, they can declare a major party, or they can remain unaffiliated, identical to how it is now. I don't see this right here impacting those individuals' ability to be able to register, ability to go vote, or showing up to vote. All this is doing is allowing a party affiliation in our state.
Chairman Holtzclaw, you have a follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to go out of session without objection, and we will hear from our speakers. If Shannon and Stephen will please come up to the table. All right. And each one of you will have 3 minutes. We will start with the ladies first. And you tell us your name and who you're with, and you will have 3 minutes. You're recognized.
Thank you so much. My name is Shannon Rasmussen, and I'm a voter. I'm a veteran here on my own behalf. HB 1616 has an identity problem. Its caption says something different from the body of the bill. Its sponsor says the media interpretation is wrong, and the voters are trying to figure out what to believe. Representative Ritchie introduced the bill last week as a party affiliation bill that is along the same lines as the bill he ran last year, HB 405. Last year's version was a political parties bill. This year's version is an election laws bill. Last year's bill sought to use party affiliation to close primary elections to unaffiliated and independent voters. This year's bill doesn't seek to close primary elections, according to the sponsor. But the opening sentence of this bill's summary matches the old summary word for word, including the phrase, "A person must declare a statewide political party." Addressing the confusion, Representative Ritchie said this: "When you end up reading the caption that our clerks enter in, that's not exactly what's in the bill." Legal services called the abstract misleading, saying the summary is partially correct but not entirely correct. Given the confusing language and the history of using party affiliation bills to close primaries, the public could be forgiven for its skepticism. Local media outlet The Tennessee Conservative, which is friendly to Representative Ritchie, reported this bill as an effort to close the primaries because based on the language in the caption, that's what it appears to do. In subcommittee, one supporter suggested that this bill could prevent criminal acts by affiliated voters who cross party lines to cast a vote. Representative Ritchie called that only partly true. Another committee member finally asked, "Am I hearing you that nothing is really changing here unless you want it to change?" "That's correct," Representative Ritchie said, "and all for a price tag of $143,000. Despite the bill's reported intention, Representative Ritchie's colleagues are telegraphing how they'd like to see the bill be used: to add teeth to the existing law that prohibits unaffiliated voters from participating in primaries. The problem is that this bill, according to the sponsor and to legal, doesn't address the problem of crossover voting. You're being asked to support an unclear bill with unclear language and unclear intentions. If the bill truly does what Representative Ritchie says, why do we need it? If the bill truly does what others hope it will do, consider this. The Heritage Foundation reports that Tennessee's elections are the most secure in the nation. No state does it better. A single party has maintained control over both houses, the governor's seat, the state attorney general's office, and the Secretary of State's office since 2014. You're voting on whether to exclude veterans, unaffiliated voters, and independent voters from the very primary elections that their taxes pay for in the name of election security. I'm asking you to oppose HB 1616. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. Next on the list is Mr. Stephen. You're recognized, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon and thank you. My name is Stephen Adelson and I'm a resident of Williamson County. I'm speaking today in my capacity as the program director at Civic Tennessee, a nonpartisan and nonprofit coalition of over 40 grassroots community and advocacy organizations committed to empowering Tennessee voters to exercise their right to vote. I am speaking today in opposition to House Bill 1616. With all due respect to the bill sponsor, and despite claims to the contrary, this bill would unquestionably close Tennessee's primary elections for any voter who chooses to affiliate with a political party, and would also lead to significant voter suppression. The bill creates an administrative deadline by which a voter must change their political party affiliation in order to participate in a primary election. If a voter who is registered with one political party seeks to change their affiliation to another political party within a month of a primary election, the voter would be denied the opportunity to participate in the primary election of the political party for which they now consider themselves to be a bona fide member. For example, a voter who is registered as a Democrat and has voted in Democratic primary elections their entire life. Less than 2 weeks before the next primary election, after wrestling with the decision for quite some time, they finally decide that it's time to make a change, and they now consider themselves to be a Republican. However, the voter arrives at their polling place on election day to find out that because of an administrative deadline, they can't receive a Republican ballot. Their only option would be to receive a Democratic ballot since they are still registered as a Democrat. And according to existing law, it would be illegal for the voter to accept and vote with that Democratic ballot because they no longer consider themselves to be a bona fide member of the Democratic Party. This means that the voter is denied the right to participate in either primary election simply because of an administrative deadline. There are countless Tennessee voters whose political ideologies change, and when those changes happen will not always align with an administrative deadline. This bill will lead to voter suppression among Republican and Democratic voters alike, and the consequence will be lower voter turnout. It is difficult to fathom even lower voter turnout that Tennessee already has, amongst the lowest in the country, and this bill will accomplish that. So concluding, I urge the members of this committee to oppose House Bill 1616. Let's not create another barrier to voting in Tennessee, which is exactly what this bill will do. Thank you for your time, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, committee, before we go back into session, does anyone have any questions for our speakers? Representative Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on my dashboard and I'm reading the legal summary for House Bill 1616. You may be able to answer this, or the Representative Richard may be able to answer it, but let me read changes to the election law. This bill provides that at the time of initial registration, each qualified voter may select on the registration application an affiliation with a statewide political party or recognized minor party qualified to participate in an election, or may select to be designated as unaffiliated. The next sentence, the County Election Commission must record the party affiliation or unqualified designation as part of the voter permanent registration record. If the voter fails or refuses to make a selection, the County Election Commission must enter on the permanent registration record that the voter is unqualified, unaffiliated. As you were reading your statements, were you saying that's where the confusion comes in?
Thank you. I'm saying that the fact that the caption uses the word must is concerning to me, because in my time before committees, what I have learned is words matter. And I have heard people use phrases like, to my understanding and to my knowledge, to sort of leave a little bit of wiggle room sometimes. And so to me, if the language of the bill and the language of the caption don't agree, there's room for wiggle room. And so to me, a better option would be to have a caption and a bill that matter, or that, I'm sorry, that match, to
Thank-
your point. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions for our speakers? Representative Martin? Okay. Any other questions for our speakers? Thank you all for being with us today. We appreciate you taking your time out of the busy day to come give us your opinions, and we thank you for that. Without objection, we'll go back into session. And I think I have Representative Miller. You're first on the list when we went back into session, so you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Ritchie, you mentioned that you voted in the primary, I guess, this past week.
Representative
went-
Ritchie,
I did on Saturday.
Representative Miller.
And when you went in, you asked for a Republican ballot. They gave it to you. You went in and you voted.
Representative Ritchie,
Correct.
Why did we want to change that?
you're recognized.
For a party affiliation, I want to just be able to go in and go vote for whatever party that I'm declared as. And that's what the intent of this particular bill language is.
Next on our list is Chairman Rudd. You're recognized.
I was just going to comment about what was said during the testimony and here, you know, whether you're an activist or you're a legislator, you shouldn't have knee-jerk reactions to any piece of legislation or policy based on a summary. You need to read the actual bill if you're going to be for or against something. And seems like half the arguments against this bill have been because of a summary, either by the clerks or the legal, but it's like no one's actually read the bill. The bill is very simple, and I thank you again for writing it, but it just allows people to declare a party, which we're prohibited. My rights are being violated now that I can't register as a Republican or Democrats. The rights are being violated too. And for all those that are frustrated that they can't register, I think this would actually encourage both parties to turn out more. It wouldn't prevent people from voting. It would encourage party affiliated people to vote more. And if you simply choose to remain unaffiliated, like it is now, you still remain unaffiliated. So to me, it seems like this would make everyone as happy as you can without actually closing a primary. And this leaves the primaries open for unaffiliated voters as it is now. But again, I just encourage everybody to read the bill and not summaries. And we all are bad about summaries when we go into committee and we're rushing through things, and then often even the bill is inaccurate because we have to read amendments. It may change the bill entirely. So, but again, I think it's a well-written bill. It's a simple bill. It's not closing the primaries. It's letting people choose a party affiliation if they so choose. And if you don't choose, you can remain unaffiliated. But again, thank you for bringing the bill. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I mean, and my question to you, is it fair to have such a large increase on the locals?
Representative Ritchie.
When you're talking about the fiscal note, I've looked at the legislation that's one of the concerns I'm still sitting there trying to work through. But the majority of that local expense comes down, if you flip back over to the other fiscal, to 3 different municipalities. And flip over here. County election commissions will be required to update their voter registration requirements. Davidson County is a one-time of $15,575. Shelby County, because of them having a different particular type of voting database system on what they operate, is 86,000. So when you look at that overall total number, that's not being spread out all over. That's really just between those 3 different particular counties is what's in the fiscal note.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. But you know, it's when our Secretary of State, and just heard him talk about how secure our elections are, as my colleague says, they're very secure. As we all know, there's extreme party affiliation on both sides, and people are clear about party affiliation. Don't you think it's unwise for us to just spend unnecessary monies? And it's a felony if we break the laws and cross over as previous laws have done. Don't you think we've arrived in terms of election integrity? Gentleman brought up a point during the pandemic about absentee voters. We're through that. But in terms of our elections, isn't this not a needed piece of legislation when everybody knows how the parties are set up statewide?
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. This is not changing from the election portion. This is a party affiliation bill. This is just allowing you to declare as an overall party. We do have very secure elections in the state of Tennessee, and it is my desire and passion to make sure that that remains going forward.
Representative McKenzie, you have a follow-up. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Rudd, if I could borrow some of his thunder just for a moment, I was on the same page that it really doesn't matter what a newspaper says or an online paper or a Facebook post or a summary. What really matters and what we're voting on are the words that start at 13, statewide political party recognition of minor party affiliation, et cetera, as it's following down there. And I think that's really important that we have read the bill. I've read the bill. I know, I would assume all of my colleagues have read the bill. So that's one thing, but I want to be clear about two things, Representative Ritchie, and thank you for bringing this. If voters in Tennessee don't want to affiliate, they don't want to pay attention to this, but they're registered right now, they can go vote now till Jesus comes, just like they've always voted, however they want to vote. They're unaffiliated unless they take an action, correct?
Representative Ritchie.
100% correct.
Okay.
Representative Martin.
My next question is, how does this relate to parties that would prevent someone from running if they're not affiliated? Does this have anything to do with that? So let's say that someone wants to run as a Republican or a Democrat. Can their party use their unaffiliation against them from running as a Republican, let's say?
Representative Ritchie.
That would be up to the particular recognized parties, I guess their state executive committee on what they end up passing. This would not end up touching that basis, but I would presume that if a particular party, say the Republican Party, decided that that would be one of the things and the executive committee voted on it, it could, but I haven't had any of those conversations with anybody.
Representative Martin for a follow-up. Representative Shaw.
Just one last question. I just want to make sure this is correct, that the locals, this will cost all of the local governments $103,100. Is that correct?
Representative Ritchie.
To be exact, Knox County, $1,500, Davidson County, $15,575, and Shelby County, $86,000 is how that's broken down.
Would you give me the three counties I'm in, Haywood, Hardeman, and Madison? What will it cost them?
According to the fiscal note, 0.
Representative Shaw.
Why 0 for those counties and some of the others not?
Representative Ritchie.
We would have to talk to fiscal review as far as for how they came to this determination on that's where there's a local expense based on. My understanding when it comes to to Shelby County is that they have a third party that manages, and I don't know if the coordinator of elections would be able to answer this a little bit more distinctly, but that's where the numbers came in at. But according to the fiscal review, there's no cost outside of those three.
Representative Shaw, I do see that we have Mark Goins with us. Would you like for him to answer that for you?
I would. And I'd like to know how the department stands on this.
Chairman Goins. Without objection, we're going to go out of session. Chairman Goins, you're recognized. Please state your name, who you're with, and we'll ask you some questions.
All right, Martin Goins, Coordinator of Elections for the great state of Tennessee. As far as we're deferred on this legislation, as far as the stance, I heard you ask that question. For the financial aspect of it, the majority of the counties use one specific vendor that has stated they would not charge anything for this upgrade. Shelby County, a larger county, obviously they have a separate vendor, as Representative Ritchie said. Their vendor gave a quote, broke it out into how many hours it would take to add to the voter registration system as well as the poll books, and that's the higher of the quotes that you have there. Knox County, theirs was lower. They typically use in-house government work, but the fee there was, I can't remember exactly why they said $1,000 some odd dollars, but there was a cost there associated with that. But the majority of the counties will not pay anything because of the vendor. So we reached out to the vendors and asked them how much they would charge. Davidson County's vendor did say they would charge as well. Typically, your larger counties have a different vendor than some of your smaller counties. So it just depends upon, it's vendor specific as far as the cost.
Any other questioner for Coordinator of Elections while we're out of session? Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Coordinator, have you read the legislation in its entirety?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Chairman, again, I'm on my dashboard, and it was alleged that many times we don't read the legislation, even when it's amended. So I want to know if I'm reading this correctly and if it's in the bill in reference to, because representatives said that if you want to change your registration, you can do it online. Is it anything in the legislation currently, either I'm missing it, I don't see it, that says that you can change that within 30 days and you can do it online or you can walk down to your local election commission?
Coordinator?
So that is in the bill, actually, so currently existing law says you can alter your voter registration. And so this would, the way that this legislation is written, it goes back to the section where you can alter your voter registration. Typically that's done 29 days before the election. The online section of it would be our online voter registration. So if someone today wanted to change their address, they're able to do so. And that's actually the state cost. There's two state costs there. One's the Department of Safety because they'll have to update their software. We would have to update our software as well. So yes, that is in the legislation. And to be very clear, so this is only for those who would want to change. This is only a Democrat or a Republican. Meaning a Democrat couldn't vote in a Democrat primary, a Republican primary, unless they changed their party registration 30 days before. If you are an unaffiliated, the way that it works is when you show up on election day, you could actually change the first time you're voting in a primary to that political party, or you could stay unaffiliated. So this is quite simply what this bill does. If you are a Republican, you will not be able to vote in a Democrat primary. If you are a Democrat, you will not be able to vote in a Republican primary. But if you are unaffiliated, you'd be able to vote in either one of those.
Representative Miller, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Coordinator Goins? Seeing none, we'll go back into session. Thank you, Coordinator Goins. And I will recognize Representative Warner. Question has been called on the bill. That's non-debatable. So we're ready to vote. Remember, this will be a roll call vote. And Madam Clerk, you can take the vote.
Representative Alexander. Yes. Representative Alexander votes aye. Representative Burkhart. Yes. Representative Burkhart votes aye. Representative Carr. No. Representative Carr votes no. Representative Doggett.
Yes.
Representative Doggett votes aye. Representative Hale. Representative Haynes. Aye. Representative Haynes votes aye. Representative Holsclaw. Representative Holsclaw votes no. Representative Love. Representative Martin.
Aye.
Representative Martin votes aye. Representative McKenzie.
No.
Representative McKenzie votes no. Representative Miller. Representative Miller votes no. Representative Moon. Representative Moon votes aye. Representative Raper. Representative Raper votes aye. Representative Reedy. Representative Reedy votes aye. Representative Rudd. Representative Rudd votes aye. Representative Shaw. Representative Shaw votes no. Representative Slater. Representative Slater votes aye. Representative Stevens. Representative Stevens votes aye. Representative Thompson. Representative Thompson votes no. Representative Warner. Representative Warner votes aye. Vice Chairman Wright.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Wright votes aye. Chairman Crawford.
Aye.
Chairman Crawford votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 14 ayes and 6 noes.
Okay. Ways and means. Okay. Doggett? Yes. All right. Without objection, we're going to recognize Chairman Doggett to represent present from the diocese on House Bill 2685. Without objection, I need a motion. Proper motion and second. Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. What we're seeking to do here is currently in TCA code 55-112, discuss conflicts of interest for county government governing bodies. What we're doing is adding a mechanism in there that in the event there's a conflict of interest that may have not been disclosed, the chair, the executive or the county mayor that chairs that commission can ask the body of the legislative body if there was a conflict. And there also is a mechanism to ask the general public that is there as well.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor on House Bill 2685. Are there any questions? Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my first question is there anyone that's going to testify about this?
No, sir.
Okay. Then my question is to the sponsor. Let's say a person is a county commissioner and their wife is a teacher, and they're voting on the budget, and the teacher is going to get a raise in that budget. Could that not be considered a conflict of interest for the county commissioner?
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you for the question. Under Tennessee Code annotated 5-5-112, that would be a conflict of interest. And that
Sure.
would need to be disclosed.
Representative Martin.
Okay, next question. In Hamilton County, when I served on the county commission, and like Chairman Wright, I'm a recovering county commissioner. I love that line, Chairman Wright. When we voted on the budget, and we voted to give our county employees a 2 or 3% raise, whatever it was, the county commissioners automatically got that same raise of 2% or whatever the raise was. It was across the board. Wouldn't the county commissioners all have a conflict of interest by voting for that with this bill? That's my next question.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you for the question. I would have to refer to legal services for the for an answer to that.
Without objection, we'll go out of session to hear from legal services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Houston, Legal Services. So the way that TCA 5-5-112 reads, it says no member of the legislative body of a county who is also an employee of the same county or whose spouse is an employee of the same county may vote on matters in which the member has a conflict of interest. So the person would have to be both a member of the legislative body and an employee. So if they are just a member of the legislative body, then there wouldn't be a conflict of interest.
Representative Martin?
So even though the county commissioner is an employee of the county, his raise is tied to the budget for all the other county employees, you're saying that that doesn't matter? Am I hearing you correctly?
Legal service.
Give me just one second. Let me look up one other thing.
I got it. I got you.
So there's two things. I don't think that a county commissioner would be considered an employee in this context. And then secondly, the county commissioners could not give themselves a raise during their term. They would have to wait for the next term to start before that raise to take effect.
Representative Martin?
Well, I know in Hamilton County, when we voted on the budget and we gave a 2% raise across the board, everyone got that. The mayor got it, the commissioners got it, everyone got it as an employee. And I'm just trying to check and make sure. And I realize in a lot of counties, the commissioners get paid, I don't know, $300 or $400 for going to a meeting or whatever. I know it varies across the state. I'm just wanting to check that because of the way things have been done in Hamilton County. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for legal services while we're out of session? Chairman Moon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Houston, I think it was clear the intent previous session that we voted that the county legislative body would be the same as the General Assembly. And that, I believe also in TCA, it requires that the county commission compensation be dealt with in a separate resolution. So I'm asking if I've misconstrued that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman Moon, could you restate that question again? I'm not sure I followed.
We passed legislation, I think, 2 sessions back that required any change in compensation for a county legislative body. It could be passed, but it would not be effective until the next legislative body was seated, sworn in and seated.
Right.
So you're technically not voting on your pay increase, you're voting on the increase of the next legislative body, which you may not be part of.
Chairman Moon, I'm sorry, I don't recall that particular piece of legislation, but that is my understanding, is that a county legislative body cannot vote its own raise until it would take effect the next election cycle.
Any other questions for legal services? Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm like my colleague from Hamilton County, having served on county commission. I distinctly remember that being the case. There may be a recent law passed. I hope that it is, but also I would consider enhancements to healthcare plans, which I know county commissioners are, from my knowledge, are eligible for.
Representative McKenzie, do you have a question
Yeah,
for legal
yes,
services?
I do.
Okay.
And so what about healthcare plans or enhancements to retirement and or 401k that a commission might vote on in its budget? It also would affect them as a commissioner. Would that be considered a conflict?
Legal services. Yeah. Give us just a second to allow them to come up with the answer. While we wait, we'd like to hear a joke from Chairman Dale Carr. You ready?
Yes. Thank you. Josh Houston, Legal Services. So a conflict of interest under this provision is created when a member is voting on a matter that, if approved by the legislative body, would increase the pay or benefits of that member or that member's spouse.
Representative McKenzie, is that
So
answer your question?
it would
Yeah.
include benefits.
It would?
Yes.
Okay, so that sounds dangerous for where we are right now. So I'm all in favor of this, but okay, thank you. Thank you, legal.
Any other questions for legal services? Seeing none, we're ready to go back into session. And Representative Martin.
Thank you. I want to ask the sponsor, I just want to make sure I understand this right, so that going forward, the chairman is going to call the roll. Then then he's going to ask if any of the colleagues know of another colleague up there that has a conflict, and then he's going to announce the vote. Is that correct?
Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
Sorry, can you restate that question?
If I'm
one more
reading
time,
this
sir?
correctly, I just want to make sure that the chairman is going to ask for the roll call, is for a call of the vote. Then he's going to ask if any of the other commissioners know that a commissioner is in violation, and then he's going to announce the vote.
Chairman Doggett.
Yes, sir. After each vote is taken that could involve a conflict of interest under subdivision A1, which is current law. And prior to the vote being announced by the chair shall ask the members of the legislative body if a member of the legislative body voted in violation of that. The chair finds that a member had voted in violation of subsection A1, the chair shall declare that member's vote void. After that process takes place, the chair shall ask the members of the public in attendance if in the meeting, if a member of the legislative body had voted in violation of that conflict of interest, which is subsection A1. And if the chair finds that that member has voted in violation of that, then the chair shall declare that member's vote void as well.
And I just want to follow up with
Representative Martin.
one last thing. So one of the things that I have a challenge with this is that you're putting all the authority to determine that that was a conflict of interest in the voice of the chair and not the body. So if the chair had a conflict with a particular commissioner, didn't, for whatever reason, and that person was declared to be a conflict, the chairman alone is judge and jury to decide that's the fate, and not the entire body to decide that of the commissioners. And the thought of asking members of the public in attendance if they know of a conflict, I could see how that could get to be a really lengthy meeting, especially here again, you go back to just the chair being the judge and jury if there's a conflict there. I get the intent of what the sponsor's doing. I just have some questions about that matter, Mr. Chairman.
Sponsor, do you have a response?
I do. I think when it comes to matters of this conflict of interest, this particular section of code and what we're seeking to address, it's going to be pretty cut and dry. And that's what a chairman does. They chair a commission. They do make decisions, but right here, it's for either that member of that legislative body, if they are an employee of the county, or their spouse is an employee of the county. That to me, I don't see how any kind of vindictive action could be taken, because it would be pretty self-evident that you either fit one or the other category, and either one. And the whole goal for this is to get members of legislative bodies to declare a conflict of interest before the vote ever takes place. And if they do have a legitimate conflict of interest, then they can express that conflict, and they're still allowed to vote.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 2685. All those in favor of it moving on to calendar and rules, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Moves on to calendar and rules. Item number 7 on today's agenda is House Bill 2080. The sponsor has asked that this be rolled 1 week without objection. It'll be rolled 1 week. I think we've only got one left, right? Yeah. Okay, we have one bill left, and this is a bill that I am going to present without objection from the dais. But at this time, I'll turn the gavel over to Vice Chairman Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a proper motion second before us. Chairman Crawford, House Bill 1581.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 1581. Members, I'm here today to present this bill on behalf of Speaker Sexton. The purpose of this bill is it is a request by the town of Pleasant Hill to amend their charter by deleting Article 4, Section 4 in its entirety. This section limited items which could be purchased without bids to $5,000. That was changed in their charter back in 1951, I believe. Tennessee Code Annotated 656-306 now allows towns to increase the limit to $10,000, and the town of Pleasant Hill will pass an ordinance to increase that amount to the purchase and to the contracts that they can be awarded without a bid as recommended by MTAS, which is Tennessee Municipal Technical Advisory Service. With that explanation, I would ask you to vote for this bill, House Bill 1581.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your presentation. Could you withdraw that? I do have one question. Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Crawford, do we have the necessary 2/3 resolution, or does this require 2/3 resolution of the county body?
I have a resolutions of 2/3, and it is located in my office if you'd like to see it.
Are there other questions of the sponsor?
I renew my motion.
Seeing no questions, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Okay, before we close today, does any of the members have any announcements or personal orders? Seeing none, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. We are adjourned. Incredible.